What's up, humans? Welcome to everybody who just subscribed. I cannot thank you enough. I am trying to put out information that I can cross-reference with different sources and then I put it out. This is not like I just get some tip from someone and I put it out. That's not how I work. My job as a journalist has been ongoing for 14 years now. So I've learned a few tricks. I've made so many mistakes over the years. I've gotten threatened with lawsuits from sports team owners because I was first a sports journalist and I still am, I think. But this is one of the main reasons why I decided to move forward with this information about the James Webb telescope. Fortunately, I have some updates for you. Professor Simon Holland is kind of fed up with people saying he's not a professor. He knows he's not a professor. He looks like a professor. That's why he used the nickname. That's why it's quote unquote professor. He is actually a filmmaker and a science communicator. That's what he is. He used to work for the BBC for many years. So he is a professional at what he does. That's why his films are so good. And he also has many contacts that are reliable from the scientific community because of his previous job. So that's why I consider him a reliable source. It's not that because I know that I do. I made some mistakes in my previous video. One of the images I shared was the Zeta Reticuli system from the Betty and Barney Hill story, which I thought it was a different one. I am not an astronomer. The rest of the information is accurate as far as I was told. So there was a space this morning about this video because it's making noise. And it's not my intention to scare anyone. I don't think I said anything that should scare people. What should scare people is when you ask a question without giving it a follow-up or even a little more information about it. If you're cryptic about it, because you want to create an effect when you ask a question. This is something that is very common within the UFO community and something that I do not agree with. So whenever I see that happening, and if I have information about the same topic, I need to talk about it and just lay out the information more complete than how that question was framed. And that's what I think I'm trying to do. So I was asked in that space about the reasoning and the sources that I have, which I'm not going to reveal. I trust them. They're people that I know where they work. I know the connections they have. And I know that if they're not dealing with accurate information, their job and their livelihoods are on the line. So that's why I trust the sources that I speak to. And the reason that I did the video in the first place is because I know there are people who are very well known within the UFO community who have this information and have been hearing it for a while, and they haven't talked about it. This stuff about Congress, I think, was a curveball for them because even if they know it's happening, they probably weren't expecting that someone like me would come out and say it. But yeah, staffers within Congress, I'm told, are like flies on the wall when these topics are being talked about. And obviously, as flies on the wall, if they hear something alarming, they will naturally try to communicate it with someone who can get it out because it's stuff that is important to know. And from the different sources I am gathering, there's one that is using this threat narrative, which I don't agree with. Fortunately, there are another two sources that I have that are just talking about this object that is over there, that is, we don't know if it is coming here or not, but we know that if it keeps going in this trajectory, it will eventually get here. But that doesn't mean it's a threat. It means that we could make contact eventually, But whether that's a threat or not, the intention of my video is to push these people out with the information they have that makes them think it's a threat. That's my intention. What is making them think that? And I don't know. If these people that I've already named could at least give people some clarity on what they know, that'd be swell. Because I hate being one of the only people talking about this when there is information out there that has been already corroborated multiple times, that it is rolling around in circles, that know about this. So please come forward. If you want to do it through your channels, be my guest. If you want to be on Psicoactivo, that'd be cool too. If you want to do it on a Twitter space, whatever you choose. But please give us some clarity, because I know that the information I have is still incomplete, but it is in the right path. So please help us complete it. We would really appreciate it. So on to other topics. Yesterday I saw a documentary of, now I can say it and I feel more than happy to, one of the best paranormal YouTube channels out there in the world, hands down, Jesse Michels, American Alchemy. He just had Nick Cook on, who I interviewed. Nick has been really nice to me at all times. He's a complete gentleman. He spoke to me when my channel was below 1,000 subscribers. So you know the type of person he is when he speaks to a really small channel. And he was always very open about his investigation and his work. His book, The Hunt for Zero Point, I agree with Jesse, is one of the best in the subject, because it has a more scientific and journalistic approach instead of the more fringe approach, which I think level-headed conversations are way more needed than the more fringe topics, because fringe topics are good and all for people who like to speculate. And if something can't be really proven, either through facts or scientific proof, I think that it is okay to have some settings to talk about them, but never talk about them as if they were facts, because that's irresponsible, especially if you're talking about these topics like a potential invasion or alien abductions, or, you know, the most fringe ones. So he had Nick Cook on, and they spoke about one of the topics that I feel the most passionate about, but it's been one of the fringest ones, and it kind of feels like it's a sin to talk about it, because when I first started hearing that potentially anti-gravity could be something that may have been cracked long ago and it's been hidden from us, when I saw the chatter within places like Reddit or UFO Twitter, I immediately saw like a pushback against people who claim that it has been cracked. And as a new person in this space who wants to keep growing in here, naturally I avoid engaging with people who are like really toxic about this, or that are flat out just, in my opinion, speaking out of school. And now that channels like Jesse's or even Lou Elizondo yesterday kind of alluded to that, if this is true, that anti-gravity was cracked by humans, it would be the single greatest intelligence failure in human history. And I agree with that. And I think that Lou, when he spoke about it on the PBD podcast yesterday, was onto something.
If you say it's unidentified object, then we don't 100% know, because it may have come from Russia or China or anywhere else that maybe at some point their engineers figured something out that we just don't know about.
That's a great point. So let's go down that rabbit hole for a minute, because that's wonderful logic, and you're absolutely correct to presume that. So let's take that argument for a second and deconstruct just a little bit. Let's look at where some of this material, its origins came from. So it came right at the end of 1940s. Okay, this is material that to this day we cannot replicate. So that would assume that some country out there has, since in the late 1940s, early 1950s, which, by the way, where was China? It was in the middle of a famine. Where was Russia? Well, they were barely trying to develop an atomic bomb. We had barely broken the speed of sound, Mach 1, and we hadn't been to space yet, right? So that means some country had the technology to build something in total secret and then deploy that capability over controlled U.S. airspace and over sensitive military installations, and has been doing so for at least 75 years. Now, if that is the case, then this would be the greatest intelligence failure this country has ever experienced, eclipsing that of even 9/11. And I don't say that lightly, because 9/11 just happened, right? I mean, this is, we're celebrating,
23 years.
We're not celebrating anything. We're unfortunately memorializing 23 years. You know, it was a horrible event. But this would be even worse than that, because that means despite the billions of dollars that we invest each year into our intelligence community and our national security apparatus and all 17 intelligence organizations out there, someone has managed to fly under the radar, no pun intended, with this technology, create it and deploy it without zero accountability, meaning no one knows, zero sponsorship. No one knows who's behind this technology. And so that means our country is totally failed. We've been leapfrogged technologically by an adversary, and oh, by the way, have been for the last 75 years. So that's not a really good scenario to be in, right? And so we invest a lot of money to always keep a competitive edge on our adversaries. We're looking very, very carefully at their new emerging technologies, whether it's Russian hypersonics or, you know, other technologies they're working on. We know what they have.
Where do we find this piece?
I guess I can talk about it. So the material that I have personally held in my hand was acquired by some folks in the OSAP program, allegedly from a crash that occurred at Roswell.
And now that Jesse, because I released a video on my members channel about it before Jesse's documentary came out, now that Jesse's talking about it more openly, that's exciting, because I know that Jesse is arguably the person who is more on the trail with this specific topic because of the TTownsendBrown story that he did, which was brilliant too. And now this one. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts. I'm just going to play the trailer that Jesse played so you can get like a really good sense of what he's talking about. But I encourage you and urge you to please go watch that documentary. It's brilliant. Both of them are brilliant, Jesse and Nick Cook. And I want you guys to let me know what you think about this whole anti-gravity stuff, about the Chinese scientist who disappeared, about Amy Askrich and her story, about other scientists who have done other stuff with different breakthroughs in science. I talk about Dr. Greenberg quite often here. He disappeared mysteriously when he was about to finalize one of the most important experiments, I think, in human history about consciousness. He was aiming to prove quantum entanglement was not only real but possible between human minds. And now that people are talking about microtubules, I think Greenberg was one of the first people who started this conversation. What do you guys think about that? What do you guys think about these scientists mysteriously dying or mysteriously disappearing when they're on the verge of a breakthrough? And this ties into what Jesse and Nick Cook talk about here. It is fringe, it is sensitive, but I think it is important to discuss, because also another tie-in is that Christopher Mellon and Matthew Pines have been recently talking about China potentially being more advanced than the US with reverse engineering from crashes that they allegedly had. I happen to think that these aerospace companies are way ahead of any of these other countries. But that's just my opinion because of so much data that is out there, which is impossible to ignore at this point. So I want you guys to let me know what you think about this. Also, I want to talk about, I opened a new members channel. Anybody who wants some exclusive content and a little bit more sensitive to talk about, and some inside baseball stuff that I do for my channel, please consider subscribing to the members channel. It's about $5 or something. I didn't do any tiers because $5 is more than enough for people who want more info on everything I do and more videos, obviously. And I have news. I've been complaining about my day job for months because I suddenly found myself without time and my schedule was really tight and I didn't want to, it wasn't really doing it for me anymore. I planned to quit about a month or 2 months from now, but I was laid off yesterday. And it is a bit of a shock in some sense, but in a way, I've been talking about the synergic theory constantly and how we create our own reality, which is true. But we got to be careful of how we frame what we ask for. And the fact that I've been talking about me not being comfortable in my job anymore, me not liking my job anymore, and being miserable about it, my mind played tricks on me and I got laid off before I wanted to. That's the synergic theory in action, essentially, but without control. And I know this gets into more like esoteric stuff, which I don't want to get into, but it is essentially what Dr. Greenberg talks about. And it is an example of how it works when it's not, when you're not aware that it works. That's the perfect example. I'm okay though. I feel relieved that I finally have more time to do a couple of videos a day, maybe 3 sometimes. Today's just gonna be 1 because I'm busy with my wife, helping her with some lab experiments that she's doing. I'm taking her to her lab and picking her up and all that stuff. When I'm done with that on Thursday, I will have more free time so I can do more videos. But let me know what you think in the comments about the update of Professor Simon Holland. I'm still waiting on those 2 Congress people who are giving me their names and going on the record with me so I can share more information about the James Webb stuff. And let me know what you think about the Jesse Michels documentary on Nick Cook, which again, it was brilliant. I'm going to play it for you right now.
There may have been stuff going on in World War II that we just don't know about to this day.
A human being is a microcosmos, i.e. the laws prevailing in the cosmos also operate in the minutest space of the human being.
You find a lot of interesting circumstantial evidence around the existence of a secret weapons program under SS Officer Hans Kammler.
Yeah, I don't even think that's circumstantial.
The tic-tac of today was the flying butane tank of the 1950s.
The reason there was a laboratory at Wright Field was to find out what we were doing and to help us do it.
Yeah, there could have been a breakthrough then. There could have been. These organizations aren't past misleading. You're looking at something that is a complete quantum leap.
I always liked your book because it was just hard-headed. Like you were a real journalist in a world of quacky, woo-woo, looking for meaning types of people.
NASA had exhibited, weirdly, an interest in anti-gravity in the sort of mid-1990s.
There's a story about this Chinese scientist that was working on anti-gravity.
That's where it comes from Warsaw.
I did sit down and I interviewed her, and she had this view that this was science and technology that should be for the people.
The best kind of disinformation always has a little bit of truth seated in there somewhere. For a while, I looked at whether the B-2 bomber might have employed some kind of Townsend-Brown type techniques to make it a little stealthier, make it a little less prone to drag.
The big question for John and the team was this the equipment that was doing it, or was it somehow John Hutchison doing it with his might?
Is there a through line with aerospace and like this interest in mind over matter?
These companies look at anything they can that can confer possible advantage.
So there you go, folks. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think about my failed synergic occurrence with me being laid off from my day job. I'm officially looking for a new job. So if you guys know anything about editorial or journalism where I can write, because I want to keep writing, let me know. I'll be very appreciative of whatever you guys can throw my way. I'll buy you a 6-pack, no problem. But the channel is doing really well, starting to do really well. So I'm not really that worried. That's why I feel like I'm happy with everything that's been happening lately. Thank you for your support. If you want to support the channel in any other way, besides sharing, liking, subscribing, or commenting, which I love, I'm going to leave a few links in the description, some Buy Me a Coffee or PayPal, whatever you choose if you want to do, or you can also subscribe to the members channel. I'm going to leave a few links so you can buy yourself something if you want, or you can get something for the podcast. I have a wish list there. Anything you can help with will be very, very, very appreciated. And until tomorrow with a new video, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.